It's time for an eye on Africa. Look at the very latest news from the African continent. I'm Melissa Bell. These are the headlines. More violence today in northern Mali. 6 peacekeepers were killed in an attack on a UN base in Kidal, the latest in a series of increasingly brazen attacks. Malian forces were also attacked in Timubktu in an ambush that left 3 dead. William Ruto wins a battle at the International Criminal Court in The Hague. Recanted testimony will be barred. A victory for Kenya's deputy president, a blow for prosecutors who believe that witnesses able to connect him with post-election violence were either threatened or bribed. And campaigning ends in the Central African Republic ahead of Sunday's second round of voting. We'll be hearing in this news bulletin from our correspondents who travelled to the north of the country and found an economy in tatters and people hoping for change. We begin in northern Mali, a region rocked once again by an attack on a UN base in Kidal. 6 peacekeepers died when suspected Islamist militants attacked with mortars and a truck bomb in the north of the country. The scene, of course, of a French-led intervention and UN efforts to push Islamists back from the towns they'd taken in 2012. There was also today violence in Timubktu. Here's our correspondent in Bamako with more.
The death toll has risen during the day after the attack of this morning against the Blue Helmets in Kidal. The United Nations peacekeeping missions base is still on high alert tonight as some of the injured are being healed either on the spot or in Gao, 350 kilometers south. French counter-terrorism force Barkhane helped out with the medical evacuation of the injured. Other attack in the north of the country by alleged Islamist militant too. In the Timubktu region, a convoy of civilians and its military escort was ambushed this morning by unknown gunmen, according to Mali's army spokesman tonight. The assailants were driving 4x4 stolen to Mali's army or fake army's 4x4. That's why they could get so close to the convoy. The attack made 3 soldiers dead amongst Mali's army, several others wounded. In both cases, in Kidal and Timubktu attack, the assailants are on the run tonight, and in both cases, Mali's authorities are pointing out the work of Al-Qaeda in the Islamic Maghreb and its affiliates, and Sardin and Al-Murabitun.
The use of recanted testimony in the case of William Ruto has been barred. Appeals judges at the International Criminal Court ruled this evening that key witness testimony against the Kenyan deputy president could not be used. Prosecutors believe that witnesses who'd linked Mr. Ruto to post-election violence in Kenya in 2007-2008 were either threatened or bribed into withdrawing their testimony. The latest ruling marks a blow to the prosecutors' hopes of beefing up what amounts to a faltering case of crimes against humanity. Now, it was his sacking as vice president that led to 2 years of conflict in South Sudan, but Riek Machar has been reappointed by the man who accused him back in 2013 of plotting a coup d'etat, Salva Kiir. The move is the culmination of a deal that ends more than 2 years of civil war, a war that has killed thousands and displaced 2 million, as Alexander Orcott now reports.
Hitting the reset button, the government of South Sudan heads back to where it was 2 years ago. Under threat of UN sanctions, the two sides signed an initial pact in August and agreed to share ministerial positions from the beginning of this year. But until now, the accord has repeatedly broken down. The world's youngest nation split away from Sudan in 2011 and initially enjoyed support and aid from most of the developed world. But in December 2013, President Salva Kiir fired the vice president, Riek Machar, accusing him of plotting a coup. This sparked a bloody conflict, mostly along ethnic lines, as the two leaders are from the 2 main tribes, the Dinka and the Nuer. Over the past 2 years, tens of thousands of people have been killed, around 2 million displaced, and the oil-producing nation has been taken to the brink of famine. The UN says the actions of both sides during the conflict warrant sanctions. Speaking from Ethiopia, the renamed Vice President Machar said the most important thing is to create peace, and he hopes the peace agreement will now be implemented.
Campaigning has closed in the Central African Republic ahead of Sunday's second round of voting in a presidential election that's being billed as a chance for a fresh start. A country long ravaged by both conflict and poverty. It is, in fact, one of the countries that is one. It is the country that is one of the world's poorest economic development. It's therefore proving a key issue in the campaign, as Catherine Norris-Trent and Anthony Fushana report.
Meeting voters hungry for change. Presidential candidate Faustin Touadéra has travelled to the far north of the Central African Republic, touring remote rural villages where people live hand to mouth and infrastructure is practically non-existent. The list of services they need is long.
You can see here we've got houses that are unfinished. We need building work in the village. We've got so many problems here.
We need schools, hospitals, ambulances. People from the countryside can't get here for treatment because the roads are so bad.
There are no youth services or training. We don't have internet cafes or anything else like that. There's not even a driving school so that young people can go elsewhere.
Touadéra is the surprise candidate in this second round and has had to rally the support of former rivals even to access part of the territory. Now he's here, he knows he needs to promise concrete measures to improve lives in what's one of the world's poorest countries.
Even getting here to Bokaranga, it's clear that the roads are so bad. This area should be a breadbasket. We need to kickstart agriculture here. We need to rebuild roads and farm tracks so that people can start selling their produce again.
Back in the capital, Bongi, there's time for one last rally before sundown. And again, expectant crowds have gathered. There's real excitement here for these elections for both candidates. People are really hoping this vote will improve their lives, mark a fresh start. A big challenge is going to be managing these huge expectations.
Rwanda has said that it will send Burundian refugees to other countries. Rwanda's foreign minister said the refugees would be relocated in order to protect Rwandan national security and to avoid misunderstandings. Indeed, a confidential UN report has accused Kigali of recruiting and training Burundian refugees with the goal of ousting President Pierre Nkurunziza, whose election to a third term in office in Burundi has led to violence that has killed hundreds. Now we're going to head to South Africa for a look at a species that was long extinct. The quagga, partly striped subspecies of zebra, was entirely wiped out by colonial hunters in the 19th century. However, a group of scientists and conservationists now believe that they've managed to bring the animal back to life. This on a private nature reserve just 2 hours north of Cape Town. Have a look.
The quagga, a partly striped subspecies of zebra, was entirely wiped out by colonial hunters in the 19th century. But now, a small group of scientists and conservationists believe they have recreated the animal on a private nature reserve just 2 hours north of Cape Town.
We are trying to breed back the quagga that became extinct through hunting many hundreds of years ago.
The last original quagga died in a zoo in Amsterdam in 1883, and critics are curious why anyone would want to resurrect the animal.
So it's an attempt to try and repair, if you like, an ecological damage that was done a long time ago in some sort of small way, and also to try and get a representation back of a charismatic animal that used to live in South Africa.
Over a period of 30 years, the Quagga project has used selective breeding of plain zebra to produce an animal they say is indistinguishable from those that roamed the same plains centuries ago.
We do this through selective breeding. We actively go out, select ones with less striping and put them together in breeding groups. And there we concentrate the unstripy gene, and each animal has got less and less stripes every generation.
Others claim this is an unnecessary interference with nature and unlikely to produce a genuine quagga.
The DNA showed that it was, in fact, the same species as the plain zebra because it was identical. And so we will call it a variety, subspecies if you like, of the plain zebra, but certainly not a different species. If it had been a different species, then the whole project would have been scientifically not justifiable.
While critics question the process and intent, it is hard to argue with the result. The project currently has over 100 animals, with 6 of these animals in the 5th generation since the breeding program began.
That brings us to the end of Eye on Africa. We'll be back on Monday evening, though, with another look at all the very latest news from the African continent. Have a nice weekend.